spoken to me on email earlier about tips for people even just becoming chefs, I would say like one of the things that came to my mind is building like a strong network of chef friends where you can bounce what goes on, like you learn so much. I mean, my 29 years as a chef, 20.
Welcome to the Private Chef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Chef series. Today we have Alexis Bondaroff. She's actually from New York, just like me up here, but right now she's located in Miami. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And we already spoke a little bit off record, but she has an ocean of experience. We're looking at like 30 years of culinary experience here. And that's one of the things that always excites me is kind of, the depth of these conversations. As I said, I just got off the conversation with Chef Chris, and it's just so energizing, to speak to fellow chefs. So I'm really excited for our conversation because I know how much you care about food and, also transforming organic vegetables into like nutritious experiences. And that's something that I would really like to discuss with you because I feel like food it brings people together at the table, but it also literally builds our body. And I feel like sometimes that gets overlooked a little bit in our industry.
Oh, absolutely. It was nurturing. Yeah. You're right. I feel like, being in this industry for so long, I started when I was young and I love it. I love being a chef. I love what I do. And my first experience was going to culinary school, and it was food and healing. It was a vegan, the Natural Gourmet Institute. I think it's still there, of Manhattan. In 1995, I went. I was going through the route of college, and I realized quickly college isn't for me. I'm someone who needs to learn by using my hands. Like, that's my direction. And so I grew up in like a very alternative kind of household, and my dad was like vegan and all this stuff, and I'm working in vegan restaurants. So it was always something very natural for me. I was interested by food and healing, like eating healthy and, So it's funny because someone who's been doing this for 28 years, I'm not a strict vegetarian by all means. Actually, as I continued through my career, I started strong in a vegan. I had a vegan restaurant in 1998 in Brooklyn, in Park Slope.
This is so far ahead of the trend right now.
And the what?
I just said it's so far ahead of the vegan trend. The wave of the vegan trends.
Yeah, it was kind of in this. Yeah, it was. You. By the way, your video disappeared. I just see an H, but I'll continue the story. Yeah, it was when it was not a. It was not a thing. It wasn't a trend. It wasn't, the trend hadn't begun, and I had this juice bar, and it was all organic vegetables and vegan food, and all these people, all our friends worked there, and it was so much fun, and I had it for a few years, and from there I went into catering. I went into learning how to do high-end catering, and after I closed I closed the restaurant after right before 9/11. I'd say about 6 months before 9/11. I was young. The business aspect of it was super hard. I was really, really young, but we had all these like amazing write-ups, and people were just like amazed at these young kids running this cafe. So when I went into catering, that's when I started realizing, and that's when my diet started to shift, because you started, food became like fried and fat, catering, hors d'oeuvres and things like these are heavy. It's like a packed full of flavor in a mouth, like a lot of elements, and things started to like layers upon layers of food. Yeah, I went into many directions. But I started to cook I found this little niche, this cooking teacher in Upper West Side. I must have been 25 years old. I had taken a few months after I closed this juice bar, and I was no longer vegan. I was starting to eat a little bit of everything, and I really learned my cooking from her. She was my mentor. Like, she took me under her wing. She is 76 right now, still catering, still teaching cooking classes. She, in 1979, had a cooking school in the Upper West Side. She was like this little old Jewish lady who taught Chinese cooking. Karen Lee. I love her. To this day, I still email her because she was a really big mentor. She taught me how to cook the most beautiful fish, the highest quality beef. She's just like really excellent chef, excellent cook. She taught me like high-end cooking, like clients, how to price people, the business, the thing that, like, when I closed the restaurant, catering and cooking and restaurant, it's all different. There's so many different areas, like you can go into when you're a chef, and it's fun. But yeah, she used to, when I was young in my 20s, she used to say, pretend you're on the phone with a client, like, I'm the client. You know what I mean? She's like, how much are you going to charge? And she'd be like, no, that's not what you're going to say. Like, propose me a menu. Like, she would just teach me this stuff. It was, I'm like, to this day, I'm like, I don't know what I would have done without her. At 25, she like gave me these high-end price, like points that I wouldn't even had realized.
To ask for.
Yeah, like a private chef. I didn't even understand that. You know what I mean? Like, she started to send me to these high net income, wealthy people who had small dinner parties. And she used to send me, and she used to give me her clients. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a whole world, out here. She really opened my eye. But yes, cooking organic. What? Tell me.
I was just about to say, this is such an important point you're making on learning how to price. Because I remember one of the first parties that I cooked for, I priced it, and I was happy. I made money of it. But then a little bit later, I realized that this could have just been my basic fee, what I charge for everything, including the food. And I was like, oh, I'm pretty off the market here. Like, I can go to a very different price point. And, that's normal for some of these clients, and it's normal in the market, and it's what other chefs charge. And so getting used to that, or having a mentor that guides you, is such a crucial piece to the puzzle.
Huge. And, when you had spoken to me on email earlier about tips for people even just becoming chefs, I would say, like, one of the things that came to my mind is building like a strong network of chef friends where you can bounce what goes on, like you learn so much. My 29 years as a chef, 28 years as a chef, the first 15 years, I never had a website or a business card. It was all like word of mouth recommendation. One of my best clients have come from chef friends. We just passed chefs along to each other. Clients were like, oh, I'm busy. Do you want this client? Oh, blah, 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 blah. What'd you charge? This is what I charge. So yeah, it's a really important building network within your industry of people that do what you do. And so you can learn. And, is definitely a huge thing. But, to tie it into like the cooking and the healthy food. I think that as being a private chef, that's what people ultimately, it depends. It's a feeling situation. Like, some people want decadent, rich food. If you're entertaining and you're doing a event for a special occasion, a birthday, and whatever, you're going to do something fancy and blah, blah, blah. But most of the time on a day-to-day, people want to eat clean, and they want to know that you're able to provide that for them. So yeah, it's a very important. So that, for me, even though I went into, I love fish, I love meat, I love all types of cuisines, my base of being a healthy, holistic, food and healing, that is always with me, always. And actually even more so now because I have a 4.5-year-old, and teaching him to cook, like I cook with him. He makes his own eggs every morning. He's like, I want to make that. He's amazing with a knife. He's amazing. He can flip an egg because it's life skills for him. He loves it. But like he's what brings me back to realizing like simple, clean food. like people, friends are like, wow, you're a chef, your son must eat amazing. No, we eat so clean and simple, quite like the opposite, like not layers of food.
But which is amazing. Like I eat clean and simple, but for me, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I feel as a child, like him amongst like his friends, and they think they're like, whoa, my son will eat sardines, he eats oysters, he eats lobster, he'll eat a rib. He eats clean but simple food. Like I don't believe in things that you cannot recognize. You know what I mean? Like roasted beet. I need him to see it. I don't want to complicate flavors. I want him to taste each thing. So, steamed rice. Steamed broccoli. I want him to taste the broccoli. I want him to taste the salmon, and know what it tastes like. I feel like building layers. For me, he's making me really rethink food because it just makes me realize, like, wow, chefs tend to overcomplicate food, and that's when you don't feel so great. I mean, it's beautiful and it's fun. And sometimes I do too. You think someone hires you and they want the whole shebang, you know what I mean? But like, when you really break it down and you see like the flavors and the simplicity of it, that's also amazing, So, yeah.
But it always depends
Food's
on the
great.
customer.
I mean,
when I first came to New York, I felt like New Yorkers, they want their sauces, and they see if you just celebrate the ingredients, it's not quite enough for most of them because they're so used to their Chinese takeout, and all of those Mexican dishes and spicy. And when I first had to adjust to the kind of the New York palate, in the sense that they love it to be very dominant in something and not so much. I just came from Spain and my chef was very much about the clean, the product and the produce, just getting the best tomatoes, not kind of putting strong vinegars over them, just really celebrating the ingredients. And that's something that I felt like was less so in New York. People wanted some overpowering flavors on their dishes.
I think it really depends on the clients. I think that's the thing about being a private chef. I've had a lot of clients in my career. I've been 20 years straight a private chef, so I've had a lot of different ones. But you kind of learn how to read people, and like the clients that I just left when I moved, my darling clients, I've been 10 years, a decade with them, a decade. They were like, when I left to move, they were like, we would have kept you until the kids were. I saw these children. 15 grow up to become adults and careers, and they're like my family. But within that family, there were 4 of them. Each of them, you learn very quickly how to read. They had all different things that I knew how to approach each one. The dad liked richer foods. The mom was really healthy. The daughter liked her comfort food, and the son was in between. And you kind of I knew which way to go. So you kind of read your client. Every client I've had, it's mostly kind of putting yourself in their shoes and what's going to make them happy. What are they going to sit down and enjoy, and put a smile on their face? Like, you kind of read them. It's really putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So yeah, I do have some of the ones, and I can read them, like the ones that want the meat and potatoes and the really rich sauces, and you'll hear it if you listen to them, you know what I mean? You hear it, like, hey, what are you into? Where do you like to eat? You can kind of like, you hear it, and then you build your own story behind it, It's quite amazing, like what people like and what food is, food is nurturing and love and comfort, and it's such a gratifying job. I'm so blessed. I can't tell you. I'm not even pretending. Like, I'm so beyond grateful that this is what I do for a living. I get to cook for people, and it's instant gratification because when you see they enjoy it, you're like, yes, So it's really wonderful.
What was that like cooking for the same family for 10 years? Like you really grow close to them, you know them, like, because you're in their house every day. Yeah.
There's nothing like it. So for me, like, first opening up a restaurant, then going into catering, it was really until 8 years later becoming a private chef for other families, not this one in particular, that I realized that's what I enjoy in the niche of being a chef. Is private cooking is something very important to me because it's connection. I'm a people person, and the connection is there. Do you know what I mean? And all my clients and throughout the years, I'm still in some form connected to. They come back to me, they contact me. I'm actually, after 20 years, I used to do these catering jobs in New York for this gentleman who contacted me when I moved here a few months later, and he's flying me to Jacksonville, Florida next month to cook for him. He has now 4 grown daughters, and I was like, wow, I moved to Miami. And he's like, oh my God. And so they come back, there's always this connection because you're cooking for them. There's something about when you cook for something, what's that saying? Through a man's, it works for everybody. It's not a man, but through a man's heart is through their stomach. There's like that saying.
In Germany, it's Liebe geht durch den Magen, and it means love goes through the stomach, right? That's
love goes through the stomach, right? Well, there's like a way to a man's heart is through the stomach, but that's everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like in a way there's this like connection that you have. And so, okay, to answer your question, the family that I cooked for 10 years, I think that the hardest thing for me to move was leaving them because they were family. And like I said, I watched their children grow up, and I'm so close to them. And we were all emotional, and they understand. I moved because I have a 4-year-old. My family is in Miami, and I wanted to raise my child somewhere else. He's like 5th generation Brooklyn, and it's time to break the roots, So I was, but to leave them, I felt their home was home for me. I would walk into that kitchen and I was pregnant in their, I had a whole pregnancy through their kitchen. There's just like, I was there. Their daughter would sleep and take naps after school in the kitchen with me, and she became she's an amazing musician. She would play her music and write her songs, and I would have tears because they would move me. And her son, we would just like watch TV together, like the connection, the mom. We would just connect. We would talk about life because ultimately, no matter what background or socioeconomic status you are, we are all human. And connection is where we form. And so I speak to them all the time, and we love each other. And it's like, I love you, I miss you. They're maid, they're cleaning lady. 27 years she was with them. We're like the closeness. You become family in a sense. Not all situations are like that, though. I'm very aware that, even though I can connect, because I know where my boundaries and I know how to be in someone's home, it's not always where you become close. These are really down-to-earth people. You're not always in those situations, but as a chef, I get to choose who I want to work with. You know what I mean? And I choose not to work with those
very
situations.
Important piece. What I always try, if I introduce somebody to the industry, I'm like, you also should be aware that the interviews are both ways, and you're interviewing the family just as much as they are interviewing you. And I think to kind of fit the family, the experience you're describing, that's what everybody should look for. It's, find those people because they are out there, and the families that appreciate you are out there, and the families that have teams that are like there for 20, 30 years, they exist. And I usually take it as a red flag if nobody in the team is there for multiple years, because that just means there's something going on in the household. If everybody's being treated well, if there's some humanness to working together, or as you said, they're down to earth, then you usually have a very long lasting relationship, and there's a sense of appreciation for each other. And I always try to emphasize that that's something to look for. Like that's really, don't settle too early.
Never. Ultimately, you have to look within yourself. Yeah, you have to be happy where you are. So even I always lived by the saying, like, one door closes, another opens. So never feel stuck in a situation if it's not, if you don't feel healthy, because you need to cook in a way. You have to be grounded, and you have to feel like you want to go above and beyond, because you care about the people, not because that's what they want from you. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do it because it's love. You're cooking, it's going into their food, and it's love. So that's definitely a very, very important. The beautiful thing about being a chef, like, there's so many clients, like, there's enough for so many chefs. Like, you get to create what kind of chef you want to be and who you want to, like, what job you want. You get to really kind of make a picture of what it is. Like, I feel blessed. Like, I look at my longevity and also my timeline and all the things that I have done, and it's like all organically evolved, into it, these different areas, but it's great. I think if you're conscious of what's important to you, your values, that's also an important thing to bring into someone's home. Your values, loyalty, honesty, you know what I mean? Like, kind of just being a hard worker, but also having the limits where you can say no, like these are core values that you're bringing into someone's home, and they feel it and they see it. And yeah, and I think it's a win for both parties. Like you said, it's an interview for both people, for sure.
Yeah. But it also takes that level of awareness, obviously, for oneself. And what you just said, that there are so many jobs out there, that doesn't quite ring true for somebody who's just getting started. Because one of the hardest parts in our industry is getting a foot in the door. And I think most people, when they start, they don't feel like jobs are abundant, and they probably feel like agencies maybe don't take them serious. It's hard for them to get their first interviews or their first trials. So it doesn't seem quite that abundant. But as you already said, and I would agree with that, there is tons of jobs out there. It's just, you have to make sure you get yourself in front of the right people that connect with who you are as a character and your skill set.
It's timing, and it's putting yourself in front of the right people. And it's also like, when you were mentioning agencies and all this stuff, like, doing this in the 90s, there weren't really agencies. Like, I never even understood, like, going LinkedIn. Like, there was no LinkedIn. I didn't go through these agencies,
Yeah.
That's an advantage, right? Like, we can, and social media, these are all, we can take this and look at it as an advantage. But at the same time, I feel the best way for a new chef is you just get yourself into catering companies. Big catering companies, small catering companies, work the industry, meet people. Some of my best friends are chefs from when I used to cater in my 20s. Some of the waiters, some of the people, I've done big events for 1,000 people, cooking for 1,000 people, and the people I call upon were the people I worked with, the wait staff or the chefs that I kind of ran with in the earlier days. So I think the most important thing is really building that network and just being out there and not relying on just the agency, because even if you just want to be solely a private chef, it can be isolating. I don't mind it. Like, I like working with people too, but I feel like it is very important to also have your network. So through those catering companies and through that network, you will find clients. Absolutely. Because you'll have friends that you cook with and they will need help, and you help each other. And, like my chef, when I have big events, my chef friends are working with me, like that's who's working with me. And even moving to Miami, somebody knew somebody who worked for a very famous person, and they called me and gave me a client when I came down here. And so it's just, it works like that. It's an organic thing. It's just being open, being friendly, and being able to execute when you do get these jobs, and do it as best as you can. And it'll never be perfect, but there's never perfect in your eye. Clients love it. You can still look at it and be like, it could have been better, but you just do your best, and you hope that the client is happy, and if they're happy, that leads to more and more work. So, and recommendations. And and that's really, so even though we live in a new world where it could be an advantage to use all these agencies and social medias, I think the core of it is really just kind of do the integrity you put into what you're doing. Work hard, even when you're working for another company. Values, try your hard, do your best.
I think values, especially in a private household, are even more so relevant than if you work in a restaurant. I think in a restaurant, people don't need to fully trust you, but they can hire you because there's always somebody around and people are just kind of on top of you. But in a private household, trust and values are 100% the foundation of everything. Nobody will invite anybody into their home if that's not like a given.
Oh no, that is the most important thing. You're in people's home. You are a fly on the wall. I mean, you're there when they're arguing. You're there. You're in their personal life. You know, like you become a part of their personal life, and you have to. Yeah, and if you're not a trustworthy person, and they know that they can just go and be at ease. I mean, that's what a client. You have to be a package. It's a full package. It's not just a good cook. I don't even think that's the most important aspect. Honestly, I feel like the most important aspect
is cooking is not the most important aspect. Yeah.
No, it's the package, you know, it's being able to be on time, you know, be able to deliver what they need, but also be someone they can rely on and trust and, you know, and hear them when they want to not, you know, tell you what they like and they don't like. Some people are just like, nah, you know, like you just have to really be intuitive. You have to be really kind of, yeah. I mean, private cooking it's a cool job. It's amazing. I do love it, for sure.
I mean, it's a real niche, and it wasn't. I didn't have it on my radar at first whatsoever. Like, it wasn't, at least where I grew up and where I studied culinary, that wasn't a thing. And maybe it's more so in New York, and New York has that kind of wealth that allows for obviously a bigger industry for it than most other places.
I think it's New York definitely, but now, you know, Miami, most big cities have it. Yeah, I mean, I look and I'm just like, wow, yeah, no, and even in Europe, I mean, there are lots of jobs and people are looking for people, you know, London, UK, you know, I mean, it's in the big cities, cosmopolitan, where, but it wasn't on my radar. I didn't go to culinary school to become a private chef. Like, you know, like I didn't even know that existed until about 8 years in. And I was just like, oh, and really, you know, if you think about, you know, I'm sure you've catered, you worked in restaurant, catering, which I love. I mean, it's putting on a show, right? You're doing a job for 500 people, whatever. It's a lot of moving hands, a lot of moving pieces, a week's worth of like kind of making sure everything ends up the way you hope to and the client wants it. It's great, but it's a lot of energy. I'm wiped out after a catering job. Like I still love doing them, but I'm exhausted because it's like long hours, it's late nights. And I feel like private cooking for small families is just like manageable for your own physical well-being. Like, you know, it's just, you know, it's nice. And even if your clients have dinner parties and they're inviting friends over and there's 10 people, they'll be like, bring some help. And you're like, wow, thank you. This is incredible. So yeah, I think it's for me, I think when money is, you know, when you break down what you're putting into the industry, you know, the catering job versus the private cooking, I think the takeaway seems so much more, the payback is bigger for me for private cooking on so many levels, you know. So
I didn't find a single private chef that wants to go back to either catering or the restaurant. There's not a single one that said they want to go back. Like it seems to be really, you know, maybe the honeycomb for chefs or so.
It is a place you can kind of, I mean, I just think of my client when I left to go to move. I'm like, I have to move to Miami. They knew it was coming because I've always talked to them, and they were like, and literally, my client was like, we would have kept you forever. I mean, there was just the two of them. Like the kids were moved out of the house, and I'm like, I know. I would have stayed here forever too. You know, like it's one of those things. It's the honeycomb. Like you'd stay there forever. You could grow old becoming a private chef. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lovely thing. And I appreciate, I'm grateful of it. Yeah. That I kind of went into that direction for sure.
So do you currently work with a new family in Miami or?
No, well, I decided to take some time. Like I'm on probably 5 months, like of moving here, going on to 6 months, and it's kind of nice to take some time off. So I am taking a little time off. Like I said, I am flying to go I'll do one-off jobs. I have done a couple of jobs that people just kind of it kind of organically happens or gets thrown in my lap in some way. And then I'm doing this job in Jacksonville. And the whole idea when I left my previous clients is that I would go back there and cook for them, and we'd continue on just once in a while. But I have a 4-year-old, and it's hard to do when you have a small child, just pick up and go and come back. So, no, I haven't really been putting it out there for a private client. I think that is something that I will, I will eventually do it, right? Like I will do a part-time private client because I do enjoy it. 2 days a week. Yep. But I think I kind of taking this time off for 5 or 6 months. I've been like really like meditating on it. Like, where do I want to go now? I'm in my mid 40s. I've been doing this since 19, and like, which way, like I purposely didn't want to throw myself into private cooking or catering because you kind of get like lost in the production of it, and it's hard to. And so I think like now I want to teach cooking classes for children because I've been enjoying so much just with my son and my niece, and I make, we make pizza doughs and bread and, just like the fundamentals, like knife skills, and I'm like loving it. So I might want to start doing something along the lines of that, and maybe even possibly with adults. And I also have other hobbies and things such as martial arts and Aikido that I was possibly thinking about maybe doing something with children and martial arts. And really, it's just enrichment, it's like just like a whole thing of life, enriching whole body, like skills. So yes, I will always have private cooking. And I think that I will, cater for my existing clients who call me and the ones that I'm going to go visit. So I will always be catering here and there. I just don't know how much I'm going to take that on. I want to kind of shift my world right now, my career, into just a different area, in which I really haven't, haven't done. I mean, I used to teach cooking classes here and there, but maybe I can do it in a different way because after having a child, everything just kind of like changed for me in the sense I don't want to work nights. I'd like to be home to put my son to sleep at night. I don't. Yep. So how do you reform your career to do these things, and so that I think that's, I don't have a client right now, but I'm meeting people, and it's funny. It's like things are, another person, they're like, oh, just give me your information. A lot of information is being exchanged right now. So I think things will open up, but I will not, I think 2 days a week at max. That's all I want to do for private cooking. Yeah. And I still have my clients in New York who I have my chef friends are doing their job, like they're cooking for them. And so there's a lot going on,
Yeah, that's the tough part is maybe as a chef, you're generally still working nights. Most of the clients obviously want to have dinner. Mm-hmm. And then when family comes into our lives, that's the harder part to kind of bring it together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that's why, it's another reason, like my clients understood, they embraced my son. I was pregnant at their home. Like they were cheering me on when I was giving birth. Like it was something that they understood, like family comes first, and, they would invite him over to their farm. It was just love. It was like an extension of their love. And so, I sometimes look on all these boards, these recruiting things, these LinkedIn, just to see what's out there in Miami right now. And most of these jobs are like, Monday, like Monday through Friday or Saturday, like till 10 p.m. at night. I'm like, no, I don't even.
Yeah, overriding flexibility needed. Overriding flexibility needed. And some of those job postings, when I read them, I'm like, are you looking for a slave? Like.
Totally. I'm like, this is insanity. Like someone who can do their errands and iron. I'm like, this is. Okay, but no, that's definitely not. That's not in my. That's a cool thing. Look, I had friends working for, people and making really in their 20s. Like in your 20s, if you want to go work Monday through Friday, like travel the world with your clients, that's cool, man. If I was in my 20s, or if I met a chef in their 20s, I'd be like, go see the world. There are jobs in Ibiza that they will fly you half the year to anywhere, and that's cool, Yeah,
I've been doing that for. They've literally flown me all around the world. I've cooked pretty much anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You see the world and it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I think but when after a family, it's just not even, it's not there. You can't do the same type of work. I mean, some people do, but it's not my thing. Yeah. I think it's good to evolve in your career as well, to find something that, and even my mentor, I mean, she still caters. I don't know how she does. She's 70, in her 70s. I mean, power to her. I have so much respect for her. But when she caters, I'm like, on her feet till 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't think I don't want to be on my feet. I just don't. It's very physical, and I'm someone who's in shape. I love working out. But it's a different type of physical. It's a different type. Yeah.
Yeah. I hopefully I'm not standing in anybody's kitchen but my own or my friend's kitchen when I'm that age. I really hope I manage my finances well to that point, and that hopefully my real estate investments pay me, so I don't have to cook, at least for money.
Agreed. Yeah, you got to make the right choices. Yes, along the way, for sure.
That's also a beautiful piece of being a private chef compared to, the salaries that we used to get in the caterer or in the restaurant world. I think we do have the option of making work optional over a decade or so if we're smart with our money. I mean, that's a benefit of becoming a chef, upgrading to this level of excellence, and working with a family that loves ourselves. Because then, as we said earlier, the pay doesn't stop with how good we can cook, even though that's a part of it, but it's really who we are as a person and how much are we appreciated. And there's some families out there who are willing to pay a lot more for who you are than what you know to do. And it's a great aspect because it gives a different level of security for our family that we can build. And, having that additional income compared to being a restaurant chef really goes a long way in the long run, if we make right use of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the big things. And also being with people, you got to get an education from the people you work for too, and how, and if they're open enough, they'll tell you and they'll talk to you and they'll be open. I mean, a lot of times, the family I cooked for, we were all in the kitchen together every dinner. At dinner, they didn't eat in a separate dining room, and so we would talk about things, and money and everything. And they were in finance, you learn a lot. You can learn, and you see, even raising children. I mean, their children, watching their education and how. You kind of learn and you take these things into yourself and what you want to do and apply. And yeah, I agree. I think that being a private chef and being able to get, make good compensation and then being wise with your money can take you a long way, and I think it's important, especially as a contractor where it's a physical job, you have to make sure you have a retirement, you know what I mean? That you have fun, you have all these things because it's your body, it's pretty, yeah. So I think you're right. I think that making the right decisions and also, yeah. I mean, again, being a private chef is what allows me to take 6 months, I was able to save and have a prudent reserve and be wise and do this in a way where I don't feel like I have to just go work in a restaurant, go get a job quick and oh my God, frantic. I feel very calm and I feel like I have time to just breathe and regroup. And these are the decisions that you make along the way in your career. This is what you learn, and you learn from other people and mentors and clients. And yeah, you just stay open-minded. Totally.
Yeah, what you said about it's very physical, it became very real for me a couple of years ago. I broke my right wrist, and that was as much of a wake-up call as it gets in being a chef that is right-handed. I'm like, okay, this could be taken from me. This possibility of having this income stream could literally be taken from me by walking down the street. And that's when I woke up to that a little bit. And I'm like, okay, while this lasts right now, I got to make sure there's an alternative in the process here. That's when I became a lot more money savvy, and I started, making sure that I have some reserves and also that I start investing. So because I really want to make my chef income like an investment cash flow in the future. So I want to make the income optional and just cook out of my passion, but also being savvy with the money I'm making right now.
Yeah, I think that's the way. That's the only way you can do it. Is being able to either find other forms of income in other areas. Like finding multiple sources of income in other areas, and also you can kind of not feel like you're a slave to cooking. I mean, cooking is beautiful, and if you can do it as a passion, like now I have all this time off. I'm cooking at home. I have stacks from the 1990s of recipes from every business. I've had so many. I've had so many businesses and stuff throughout the culinary that I'm like going through my recipes, and I make like 5 a week just because it's been so long since I had the time to just cook because I'm enjoying it, because it's super, it's nice, it's relaxing when you're alone and you're cooking and you don't have to be like, I gotta get on the table. So yeah, I think it's important to to make sure you make the right financial decisions and have reserve.
Who nurtured that money mindset for you? Is that something that you learned from the families that you work with, or is it something that came from your family? Or
I learned I've always been really interested in finance, money. I mean, I get into these I've read so many finance books. I mean, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. All these books, everyone, 4-Hour Work Week, everything. I'm someone who, since I was 18, I was always really into self-healing, learning, evolving books. That's what I read. I don't read fiction. I read about to learn. And so
I'm in the same camp. Yeah.
I remember when I was in my 20s, Susie Orman, I mean, that's the reason why I have a Roth IRA. I was a chef. I was in the catering company, and I was like, oh, Roth IRA. And I read How to Become Women in Money and all this book. And I was like, oh my God, I followed her steps and I got myself out of debt. And so I've always been super interested in it. And thank God, I mean, I think that everything has, like you said, when you broke your hand, there's always an expiration. You never know what the future has in store. So you have to have this set up. So yeah, I mean, it's partially, my family, my parents, but clients and reading books and all these podcasts now. There's so much information out there that you can learn, and know. So yeah, I think that's where I got it. Yeah, just educating myself as much as I can.
I love that, because I'm big into that kind of education. And being savvy, not just being a consumer on that end, but really taking your future into your hands. And because look at the beauty that you have right now, experiencing this with your child. You can be home and you have that room to breathe. You're not concerned about where next week's money comes from, but you're really on top of it, and you can enjoy this very special time.
So much. Yeah, I am great. That's why I'm so happy and grateful. I'm not just saying it. I just we wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And we say it together. We're always thank you for another day. And and even, with my clients, after my son was born, I was working 2 days a week, and I felt grateful that I didn't have to go back 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and miss such a big chunk of my child. I had my son in my 40s late. And so I really waited so long to enjoy this. And so I feel, and that's another thing, as being a private chef, that's another plug to becoming a private, it's good. You can kind of work within what is, works in your, you can do some part-time. It's not as demanding. So you can find that balance that you need to raise a child, or, balance in life. Everything is balance in life. So for sure. I'm good. Yeah, I think so it's just being conscious. It's being aware.
Yeah, it's also kind of getting to know oneself to the degree where you know what you want, and then go and find the clients that support that lifestyle. Yeah. Because they exist.
But like I said, they're there. They're there. Yeah. They're there. I feel you kind of almost will that in. You know what I mean? I feel they're there. You get to choose. When you look at it, it's my choice. The next job I of course, because I had savings, I moved, but it is ultimately our choice who we, decide to work with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we choose.
So one of my favorite questions that I usually ask at the very end, and I think particularly with you, that one hits home, is what does it mean to you to have a life well lived?
Freedom, being able to choose, it's not material things for me, like I'm fairly a simple person, basic needs, but just to be able to travel and enjoy my life, enjoy my time, enjoy my family, enjoy my child, that's everything for me. Yeah, I mean, that would be a life well lived, enjoy, which I already am happy with what I do for a living. I'm grateful. I can't even believe this is the thing I've been doing all these years. And I really grew to fall more in love with it as it aged, as I aged, as my career aged. And so, I think that just being present, being able to just feel at ease and enjoy what comes my way, and the opportunities I get to be open to it and choose the right ones that feel and resonate with me, So
nice. I love this. Well, Alexis, we're already at the end of our time. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and sharing your story. This has been very enriching conversation. I love the input and the ocean of experience that you have from it's having such an interesting career and sharing it with us.
Thank you. This was great. It was very nice talking to you. Very nice. Thank you for reaching out to me.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.